Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Dee.
Lovely to have you on the show. So, Carolyn, tell me about this amazing campaign that you're doing, because it's obviously exactly what we've been talking about on Beauty Investigates.
This isn't the first time I've touched on UV. Years ago, before I became an MP, I got involved in the campaign, which was around getting the age reduced that people could use sunbeds. Because what we were discovering, a bit like you through Beauty Investigates, was that
Yes.
there were a lot of young people just rocking up to sunbed parlours. There was no information asked of them about their age or their skin colour, and most of them weren't even operated by a human being. They were coin operated, and as a result of that, we saw a huge number of young people who were disfigured for life because of really serious burns, melanomas and burns. So back in 2010, I was involved in the campaign to get the age reduced. So you had to be over 18 to use the sunbed. The bigger problem was UV. Sunbeds were one part of it, but there was a bigger problem with UV.
Yes.
And I discovered that so many people either don't use sunscreen, don't understand the benefits of sunscreen, don't really understand what the UV index is or what relevance it is to them. Maybe they can't afford sunscreen. Maybe they believe these myths online that sunscreen is dangerous and that they shouldn't use it at all. And so we started to look behind all this and discovered how many people, for example, who work outdoors. So we met a lovely man who was a landscape gardener and never used sunscreen, but was constantly in the sun and has had melanoma after melanoma after melanoma after melanoma. I think he's had about 6 or 7 melanomas, all cancerous, all removed. Obviously now we use his sunscreen, but he's campaigning to get sunscreen into the manual industry, if you like. So he's campaigning that lorry drivers should have it and outside workers could have it. And I thought, well, what about people in the armed forces? What about people in sport? Are any of them actually using it? So that was one area we looked at. And then we looked at people who just didn't recognise the need for sunscreen, didn't realise it was an issue. And we spoke to some people who'd, they may be in their 60s and they'd had melanomas, but sunscreen wasn't something they grew up knowing anything about. They didn't really understand the SPF thing either. That was something that confuses a lot of people. What SPF should I use? And then we looked at what maybe stopped people using SPF. I discovered for some it was cost.
Yes, a lot of it is. Yeah. In the beauty industry, they're using it, aren't they? As some sort of thing to, you've got to have factor 50.
I think a lot more people are saying factor 30 now. I think, there seems to be a shift to factor 30. Factor 50 is more expensive. Yes. But it doesn't do that much more than factor 30.
That's good information.
So that's more messaging that we've discovered that, I use SPF every day now, but I didn't used to.
No,
I didn't used to. I didn't see that. I thought, I'm putting my moisturiser on. I don't need SPF. Now I understand it. I mean, I used to be somebody who loved the sun. I still love the sun, but I also love it in a bottle now. I'm quite happy to put fake tan on and look just as good, if not browner, than by spending a couple of hours in the sun going lobster red. But it's getting that message out. And, when we had that hot weather a couple of weeks ago, I'm a big gym user now, and I went up to the gym, and there was a young girl at the gym who couldn't get in the pool because she was so sunburned, and she was sitting on the edge of the pool trying to splash, and she was red. And she thought it was quite clever. She thought it was funny. I said, "Are you burning?" She said, "Oh, yeah, it's awful." But, look at me. And she wasn't brown. She was lobster red.
Awful.
I said, I
remember that.
Do you understand the damage that you're doing to your skin?
Yeah.
When you think about, you could be sunburnt in your child years, and that melanoma won't come out until you're maybe 40 or 50. So we don't know what we've got coming for us because of the damage we previously done.
Exactly. And people think that the cover-up is actually just for holidays, don't they?
Yeah, and they
But it's
think that
not.
suntan, that SPF is only for holidays,
Yeah.
and they think that, they shouldn't use sun cream any other time, and that we haven't got the kind of sun over here that can actually damage them. You have some people who go for sunbeds because they're going for a base tan.
Yeah.
So there's so many areas in the UV world that we need better education on,
Yeah.
more information on, and definitely more regulation on.
I agree. And
I mean, you can't
Carolyn, can I just ask you, climate change, what do you feel the contributory factor towards that, towards the fact that people are getting a lot more skin problems from UV
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to
radiation?
be playing a role.
Yeah.
I don't really understand much about climate change. Only what everybody understands. I'm not one of these people who goes into
No.
it in depth. But I mean, seeing how hotter our summers and how freak weeks of heat waves has become,
Yes.
then you got to wonder that has to be that contributes, got to be contributed to climate change. It's got to be. But of
Yes.
course, we have people who would say that's not true. But I mean, I think
yeah.
back to the summers when I was a kid, they were always lovely. We didn't have
Yes.
the heat that we had last week,
No.
and I don't think this country's geared up for that kind of heat. That's the
No.
pity.
It's not at all. So,
Oh.
Carolyn, whereabouts do you live? Do you live in London or do you live in
No,
Wales?
I live in Wales. I live in South Wales. But
Because
I work in London.
you're deputy MP, aren't you, for the
I'm deputy leader of Welsh Labour, but
Yes.
I'm an MP. So I work in London with my MP job,
Yes.
but I live in Wales. So I come up at the beginning of the week. I go home at the end of the week. I spend the weekends in my home, and I spend the week up here when we're in
Yes.
Parliament to sit in. But I mean, getting home was a nightmare last week because of the heat. I mean, being in my office was a nightmare last week because of the heat, because I got a glass office. So, we must have about 7 or 8 fans operating today around here. We have to get I've got my blinds closed because the sun was coming in. But we're not used to it. So something's changed. Something has happened, has changed, and it can only be climate change because that is what controls the heat and the rain and everything. So,
and even if it's a combination, I mean, there are so many arguments about it. Some people say to me, there's no such thing. Other people say there's definitely, it is a thing. It's got to be something.
And when you go to other countries, like I went to Australia earlier this year.
Yes.
And they completely get all this. And they've been prophesizing for sunscreen for a long time. They outlawed sunbeds a long time ago. They have a much lower melanoma rate than us. Kids there are in competition with each other in school as to who is the best protected. If only we lived in a world where kids were looking to be protected from the sun instead of rushing headlong into getting a burn, which is going to be dangerous and nasty.
Exactly. Because Australia, of course, has always had a lot of sun, so they're
and
New Zealand, educated.
New Zealand and another country everywhere in Europe is better than us. I mean, people on the continent hide from the sun in the afternoons, and they get tanned, but they get tanned by just walking around with their SPF on, and they have lovely colours.
Yes.
Over here, we see the sun and we're out there going for the lobster, straight away.
Exactly.
We don't understand the damage that we do.
Don't.
So this is what my campaign's about. It's about educating people, making it affordable, and putting in legislation that we can put in that will prevent people from burning under artificial UV.
Yes, absolutely. I remember in the 80s going to Scotland and going into a salon at that time. I don't think they were called clinics then, and lying on a sunbed and thinking, this isn't doing me any good. And I said to the lady who was running the salon, I said to her, I'm not sure about these sunbeds. And she, they're really good for you. Like our parents used to think, get out in the sun, And it didn't matter if we got a bit burnt. But
there are some conditions where using UV light is recommended, but then that would be done under medical conditions, i.e. hospitals, dermatology units in hospitals have special UV light, which is medicinal, and it's controlled and it's on prescription, basically.
Yes.
If you've got a dermatological condition that you think needs UV, then go and see a dermatologist. Don't go and have a sunbed because you're self-diagnosing, which is what a lot of people do. And they convince themselves that they're not harming themselves, and they don't wear protection. And
Yes.
in fact, anything, they'll wear what they call accelerators. So there's a product which you put on to help you fry easier. Seems like madness, but it's true, you know.
Yeah.
There are some sunbed shops which are very good, and that they do the proper consultation, and they actually ask you the right questions, and they recommend you know what you should use it for, and they recommend you know how long you should use it for. But not all. So the only way you get the catch-all is to legislate, is to say, if you got, it's just like smoking, isn't it? If you're going to smoke this cigarette, you need to know the potential harm that can cause. Hence why we've got those graphic pictures on packets of cigarettes. I want to see sunbeds having the same kind of graphic pictures that says, we're not stopping you going on here, but please be aware, if you do, this is what could potentially happen to you.
Exactly. Because talking about, you know, how in the olden days, as we say, I remember when I was a kid or a teenager at school, and we used to put, in our break, we'd put olive oil on our skin to burn.
I've done it.
I mean, how nuts is that? But, you know, at the time,
it was olive oil and vinegar. Yeah, olive oil and vinegar was the other one. I can remember smelling like a bag of chips, but thinking, I'm going to be a lovely colour. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll end up with melanomas because of my previous stupidity, but at least I have come to it now.
You have.
Make the right decisions.
And it's making a difference to people's lives, Carolyn.
And I hope it will. You know, I mean, we done the inquiry, which was really enlightening, and we're now coming to get up with a strategy with the industry that says, I'm asking the government for certain things. I'm asking them to regulate sunbeds. I'm asking them to put stringent regulation in to prevent people harming themselves on sunbeds. And I'm asking the Treasury, which is always a difficult one, to actually take that off SPF, off sunscreen, because it is not a luxury beauty product. It is, for me, a health preventative measure. So if I'm doing that, I need the industry to help me by coming up with ways that they can help with providing education and outreach, and actually coming up with providing ways of helping us. Like I think that we need to do, especially with children, I would love us to roll out some kind of nationwide public health campaign in schools, a little bit like we've done with dentistry, to teach children how to apply sunscreen.
I agree, and what to apply. Yeah,
but to do that, we need the actual product to be easily for them to use. Because you can't, kids won't put a little handful on and rub it in. They need some kind of applicator. So, and make it fun, make it something they want to do, make it, you know, a bit of a game or something. So that's the plan, working with the industry to help us with the education and the product side of it, working with the government to work on the regulation and the finance side of it. And that's where we are.
That sounds amazing, Carolyn. And I mean, what about sort of linking up with a sort of manufacturer of the sunscreen? Because
that's what we're doing next week. So we've done that all the way through.
Brilliant.
So it was the beauty industry which has been behind the inquiry, because they really helped us to get out there and get the information that we need. And now they're prepared to actually put their money where their mouth is now. And
wonderful.
Say, but we don't know what that's going to look like. That is what we're working on, is what is that going to look like? It would mean that they're going to have to step up to the plate. And no one manufacturer, because it can't be about one manufacturer. It needs to be the industry. The industry coming forward and saying, we promote this, we will provide this, we will support you to do this. So they not just help me, they help the skincare charities, they help develop an education program, they help develop, you know, loads of things. I mean, one of the ideas I've got for the summer is every Christmas, Easter and school holidays, I provide food. So we do hampers at Christmas and hampers at Easter, but every holiday we do pack lunch for kids if they're involved in a free activity in their area.
Yes.
So we do it with a rugby team. So they provide the sport. we provide the food. So we know those kids are being fed and they've got,
Oh, that's
more
wonderful.
often than not, they've got something to take home with them as well. Fresh fruits and the kinds of stuff that maybe they don't get all the time.
Yes.
This summer, I want to add to that free sunscreen, a free sun hat. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm trying to convince some of the brands to actually give me sunscreen so I can give it to these kids to take home. And if they've got a brother or a sister, to give them one to take home with
Yes.
a sun hat to protect them and give them the messaging. This is really important to protect your health. And
Wonderful.
hopefully that will help. So that's one thing I'm going to work. That'll be small this year, but if it works, then it'll be bigger next year, which is the way we always do things.
Right. Well, congratulations. I know it will work. And if you want to come back and talk to us about exactly how it's all progressing, and we'll just get it out there. And I think you're doing an amazing job, Carolyn.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Dee, for having a chat. It was lovely.
Not at all. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Lovely. Thank you, Carolyn. I'll see you again soon.
Bye, Dee.